Navigating a crisis by asking for help. This segment is entitled, There is Help and Hope. And I'm honored to have Dr. David Copeland with us. Dr. Copeland, licensed mental health counselor, advanced licensed clinical pastoral counsel, certified clinical drama professional, brain spotting practitioner. Wow, this is something you were well versed on.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to share some of the information that's out there that will help our community hopefully to become more at peace by being able to understand the dynamics of life and to be able to understand that there are natural processes in the way our brain is working that once it's understood, you can realize, wow, I'm not crazy.
And I love it. I know your business up there in Niceville is called GHP Counseling Services. Why don't we start off with that and let's tell everyone out there what the specialization of GHP Counseling Services are.
GHP Counseling Services is an integrative approach of being able to combine all of the different effects in which we exist, a heart, soul, mind, and a strength. And to try to isolate one from another is not really very effective. Matter of fact, it can complicate things. But when you start understanding that our mental health also affects our physical health, and as well as sometimes our physical health can affect our mental health as well. But by integrating it and being able to recognize it and being able to pull it together under one umbrella enables individuals to become much better, much faster, rather than staying in a survival mode, if you will, that keeps them trapped and imprisoned. And that's what I'm really about. I like to try to help individuals with where they're at, meet them where they're at, and help them to be to where God would want them to be. And I even deal with individuals who have gone through post-traumatic stress disorder. So,
yeah, I mean, you're definitely well versed. This is certainly a perfect subject for you. We're honored to have you, Dr. Copeland, on this. You've elected to title this segment, There is Help and Hope. What does that mean to you?
Basically what it means is when we start understanding what the dynamic of life is really about, and when we start recognizing that a lot of the things that we've gone through has put us in a survival mode. And in that survival mode, it's great for keeping us alive to be able to live another day. Because when things happen in life, when a trauma occurs or when an adverse condition happens, there is a part of our brain that codes that as being harmful or scary. And so we have an emergency mode that winds up getting put in place that codes anything that's close to that as being dangerous. And it's great to be able to survive. But as those emergency modes stay in place, sometimes in life when those conditions no longer exist, those emergency modes exist, and they stay in place, creating a maladaptive way of living that keeps us stuck in survival. So I like to be able to work and help people understand that there is help to get unstuck from those different areas of life and hope to be able to move into a better tomorrow because you're no longer stuck living in the past or being kept captive by that which is keeping you from moving forward. So,
yeah, and perfectly suited for this presentation here by AFA, Dr. Copeland. And I know you're a mental health counselor, licensed clinical pastoral counsel, and clinical trauma. I understand all those, and many of the people in the audience do also, but brain spotting practitioner. Yes. That is one I'm not aware of. Please explain brain spotting to me if you could.
Sure. I came across brain spotting while I was going through becoming a certified clinical trauma professional. And it was introduced during the class. There was a number of individuals who had been asked, hey, how many of you do EMDR? And EMDR is another modality of, it's another modality to be able to help individuals who have experienced trauma. But a lot of the individuals there, probably in the room, there were 70 individuals that were licensed counselors at all different levels and social workers as well. And not one of them raised their hand. Over half of them, of 70, had raised their hands saying that they knew how to be able to do it. But then when asked, how many of you are still doing it, not one of them raised their hands, and it was rather interesting. And so the idea of brain spotting actually wound up being introduced to the entire class to be able to talk about where you look is how you feel. And I've noticed this even with combat veterans as they go through with their experiences. When those events happen, sometimes our eyes are set at a particular point. And in theory, what happens is that gets trapped. So you can have, say, for instance, a person that works with intel. They may not be in direct combat, but that which they're monitoring on the screen and making life and death decisions, if you will, winds up being right up here where the monitor is. So their brain becomes conditioned that when they look over here, maybe to the upper right, for instance, the brain codes that as, hey, this is danger zone. And so now, for the rest of their life, because of the way the brain has been predisposed to have that spot recognized, every time they look up over here, or every time they look to the right in that particular area, there's part of the body that winds up freezing. And it winds up creating a situation. I had one lady that was actually in Intel, and her screen was up to the right, and she was talking, and she came in, she was looking for some different help, and she had just had a recent accident riding a horse. And I'm trying to make brain spotting a little bit simpler.
Right, sure.
And what happened was, as she was cantering her horse to the left, everything was fine, everything was wonderful. But the moment that she turned and started cantering the horse to the right, well, guess what? Her shift moved over into what the brain had pre-coded as that danger zone. And she tensed up, and the horse sensed it, and she wound up having an accident and falling off of the horse and injuring herself pretty badly. And so as we were going through and I was trying to help her, I was able to help her to make that connection of those things that are planted at a deeper level that are now interfering with everyday living that winds up creating situations that no longer exist. Even her shoulder, for the longest time, she had always had this tension. She talked about maybe 10 to 13 years she'd been going to a chiropractor in different places and acupuncture to try to get the shoulder put back into a better position where it was actually functioning and it was working again. But her spot where she was always looking had already had this built-in tension within the subconscious of the brain that would never release. So as I worked with her using that brain spotting, we were able to recognize where that spot was. The brain was able to release even that physical part that was still holding that tension within her body. And after we got finished with about a 45-minute session, she was like, wow, it's never been like that before. It's like everything's released. And so fearfully and wonderfully made, wow, that is a succinct understatement.
Yeah, no doubt. And I love the fact that you can take care of it in less than an hour, which is absolutely unbelievable. So as we have some of our military heroes out there who may be navigating their own crisis, what are some of the symptoms that they would think internally where they might want to contact you?
Well, one thing is to be able to start noticing whether are you living life by reacting to different situations, or are you able to be present to be able to respond? If you go through life and you continue to react in fear, then what you're actually doing is you're living out of a fear-based survival mode rather than being able to respond to life in love. Sometimes you can have the same results happen that you're looking for, but because you're using a different power source, if you react in fear out of survival, it's a different power source that can destroy you versus that being able to fully respond in love. So if you start isolating yourself because you're afraid of the way that you're going to react in different situations, or you find that you're reacting to a family situation or to a particular family member or at work in a particular way that is causing problems, or it's raising your anxiety where you start having, the heart palpitations and you're not sure where it's really coming from. This could be an indicator of an emergency mode that has wound up being stuck in place. And it's for good intent to be able to help you to survive, to be able to live another day, but now it's getting to the point of being maladaptive. And if it stays in that maladaptive state, what's going to happen is you're going to continue to have those worsening conditions because you're stuck. So you can even go through times of depression, anxiety levels, panic attacks. All of these are different indicators. Even if you have a place that winds up being, I don't like to look there, that could be an indication that maybe subconsciously something's happening that might need a little bit more exploration. And within that exploration, it's okay to be able to be curious. And that's one thing I want everyone to be able to understand. The genius of the brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, to keep you alive, to be able to survive another day. And within that, guess what? You're not going crazy. Matter of fact, the brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Now, the key is being able to work within that dynamic to be able to transition instead of reacting out of fear, being able to respond to life with the better power of love and being able to engage life in that way that enables you to be able to have a much better life, not only for your family, for yourself. If you think about it, as veterans, we live and we have continued to work within an environment to be able to provide that freedom. But we also have to remember it is a freedom that is not just for others, but it's also for ourselves. And if we fail to see that, then we're missing part of the greatest part about being in America and being an American and being able to have that full freedom to be able to engage in life in a positive way that brings a greater world and a greater community and a greater existence overall.
I love it. Dr. David Copeland, how topical that is, and a wonderful presentation. For those folks who would like to get in touch with you, what is your information? I know RJ will put it on the screen there, but how do they get in touch with you there at GHP Counseling Services?
They can go ahead and call directly at 850-659-3550. Also, we have the website, which has a lot more detailed information about brain spotting. It also has a lot more information about PTSD. And within those different tabs, you can go back through and take a look. There's other resources there as well. Work with a number of different combat veteran supported organizations like Shield of Faith Missions, SOF Missions, and as well as Camaraderie Foundation, Wounded Warrior Foundation. And so there is definitely help and hope. And please don't forget that. No matter what, find that which is going to work for you and make the best of it.
Dr. David Copeland, navigating a crisis by asking for help. We've been honored to have you on here today, sir. Again, GHP Counseling Services, 850-659-3350. So great presentation, my friend. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for more here on Navigating a Crisis by Asking for Help.